Imagine that you're dating a girl that you really like. She's your dream girl, she's beautiful, she's everything you've ever wanted. After a short while, you hear a story or some rumours, or maybe she lets something slip, that her ex-boyfriend was very well endowed. Now, think about how that would make you feel. Would it make you feel inadequate? Embarrassed? As though you don't measure up? That you're not man enough? Or that you can't make her happy or satisfy her? These are normal male insecurities. Now, consider a different experience that I'm sure many people can relate to, where you meet a person, a guy, who always has to have one up on you. No matter what you say, he's always done more. So if you say you make 50,000 a year, he makes 60. If you drive a Mercedes, he drives a Ferrari. If you have a 3-bedroom house, he's got a 5-bedroom house. No matter what, he always gets one up on you. I share these two examples because underneath them is a core fear that many men have. The deepest male fear of not measuring up, of not being good enough as a man. And this is what I wanted to talk about here, because I feel like this fear runs a lot of men. And only when you begin to recognize it can you actually start to take some autonomy and start to be more in control of your own life. Because most people are not conscious of what's running them. A lot of these fears have been programmed into us from our upbringing, from society, culture, friends, and we never stop to question why I pursue the things that I pursue. Why am I so desperate to achieve something or have something? But it's only when you begin to question these things and really look in your own subconscious mind that you come to a realization and see the things that are running you. And when you see that, you can actually start to change what fuels you. And that's much more empowering. I believe this fear goes way back. I think this is an evolutionary fear that has been with man for thousands of years. It was all about survival. So for a man, he had to have resources. He had to be in shape so he could take care of himself and take care of the people around him. He had to be socially confident so he can connect and increase his chances of survival and increase the chances of his genetic material being passed on. And these are very basic human drives. Back then, this fear served a purpose. It helped you survive and it helped you pass on your genetic material. The world we live in now is very different. 2024 is very, very different from what it was thousands of years ago. Your survival is not under threat anymore. With a lot of these primitive fears, they stay with us because they're embedded in the culture, they're embedded in the society. So a lot of men now still go through life trying to prove themselves, but there's no need to. The emphasis to prove yourself is not necessary because your survival is secure. We see many men these days desperately trying to prove themselves. Some men would rather die than live with this sense that they're not good enough. It's that bad. It's worse than the fear of death. You can see this in people who work 80 hours a week, right? There's many men out there who will work themselves into the bone because they're so desperate to not feel inadequate. That's how deep this fear goes, right? It's worse than the fear of death. Ask any man and he will tell you. I uncovered this fear in myself through a lot of introspection, a lot of meditation, journaling and reading, and found at the core of a lot of my fears was this fear that I wasn't good enough as a man and I had to measure up to some society ideal. And when I saw it, I realized that this is not effective. This is not an empowering way for me to move through life. And so just to give you some examples of how this fear will manifest, a lot of guys will try to prove themselves to be good enough. One obviously is financial success, material success, physical prowess, to build your body, to have big muscles, to be in good shape, to be physically attractive, to be sexually attractive, to be able to perform sexually, to be socially confident, to be the best you can be. And there's nothing wrong with any of these things. I absolutely believe that we are here to maximize our potential and to use all the gifts that we've been given. So there's nothing wrong with pursuing these things. The problem I have is where your pursuit is coming from. Is your pursuit coming from a place of self-empowerment because you deeply respect yourself and you want the best for yourself? Or is it coming from a place of inadequacy? You fear not measuring up. And so you're on this desperate hunt to achieve these things and have these things because you believe it will eventually give you that validation that you desperately seek. Spoiler alert, it won't. Unless you're a very conscious person who does a lot of healing and self-development work alongside with achieving your goals, then you're going to pursue these things and it's going to end up being an empty pursuit. You might even achieve them. You won't actually evolve as a human being. Because if your starting point is, I need to prove myself, then even if you arrive, that program will still be running you. So you'll potentially then project it onto the next thing. You might even get to the next thing and then you'll project it onto the next thing. Because your unconscious motivation is, you need to prove people wrong. You are not good enough. And the game will never end. You'll never arrive. You'll never be happy. You'll never be fulfilled. And that's a very sad way to live. And we see this. We hear these sorts of stories all the time. Somebody became very, very wealthy and he was still sad and depressed. I've heard it a countless number of times. If you have anxiety in any of these areas that you don't feel like you measure up because you don't have enough money or you're not in good enough shape, then underneath that, something's wrong. It's not healthy. You weren't designed like that. Instead of playing this game of trying to prove yourself or achieve some ideal that society sets, or you trying to be better than somebody you know or some influencer you know, there's a better game you can play. And that game is to compete with yourself, is to just be better than you were yesterday. That's the best game you can play. That's the best way you can use your competitive drive. Because the game of trying to prove yourself or be better than somebody else is a game you will never win. Because like I said, you'll just project it onto the next thing. But if you play the game of just bettering yourself, first of all, it's a fairer game. If you're trying to compare yourself to somebody else, that other person might have a completely different background, a completely different story. You might have had a very rough story, very difficult story. So for you to compare yourself to this other person, you're probably already at a disadvantage. And then if you cannot catch them, it's diminishing your self-respect and your self-esteem. So you will only ever feel bad about yourself because it's not a fair playing ground. You have no clue about what that other person has been through. You haven't lived their experience. You've only lived your experience. Because of that, it only makes sense that you compete with yourself. Day after day, be better than you were the day before. And like I said, this isn't necessarily any easier than trying to compete with somebody else or trying to prove yourself. They're both hard journeys. I just believe that the journey of competing with yourself is a more satisfying journey, where you will actually build self-respect, self-esteem. You can look back after a year's time, perhaps, look back and go, do you know what? A year ago, I was working a dead-end job. I was out of shape. I was overweight. I was single. I was unhappy. Now, I'm making my own money. I'm in better shape now, and I'm in a relationship, right? So you're just comparing yourself with who you were before, and that increases your self-respect, and your self-growth becomes like a linear thing where it just goes higher and higher and higher. You've probably all seen them linear graphs. You just focus on getting better each and every day and you're going up, constantly going up, providing you keep doing the work. But if you're trying to catch somebody else or prove yourself to somebody else, like I've said, that's going to always be your mindset. You might get there, but you'll still have the same mindset. So it's as though you'll be back to zero. And then you'll be trying to pursue the next thing. You might get there because your mindset is, I need to prove myself. You'll always be at zero. You'll never actually get anywhere. You might get some external achievements, but inside you'll still be empty. And that's why it's a futile journey. It's better that you use your competitive drive to just be better than you were yesterday. The second key thing here is to be fueled by purpose and not be fueled by fear. Now, I'm not going to lie, fear is a powerful motivator. If you've got a lion chasing you, you're going to run. It's a powerful motivator, but it's not necessarily the best motivator. When you're fueled by fear, you are going into a survival response, fight or flight. That's the whole purpose of fear, is to keep you alive. If you're afraid of not being good enough, or you fear you don't measure up, on some level you're in this fight or flight response, desperately trying to get somewhere. And you do not function at your best when you're in fight or flight. You function at your best when you are calm and at peace. In fight or flight, you are not accessing your full human capacity, your intelligence, your creativity, innovation. These things only come online when you are calm. When your nervous system is settled, you function better. So for that reason, this is just not a sustainable, efficient source of motivation. You need to stop putting fear in the tank, because it's going to be a bumpy ride, ineffective. You need to start putting purpose in the tank. But the thing about purpose is more than just you. Purpose can only come from a place of love. And if you are trying to prove yourself, you probably don't love yourself very much. So you will need to do healing work. When you do the healing work, what you'll come to realize is that your essence is love. This is what they say when they say unconditional love. That is what you are. Check out my video called Self-Love is the Ultimate Life Hack, because it is. When you find out that your essence is love, that becomes the fuel that drives you. And you can go a lot further. It's much more efficient. It's a cleaner energy, okay, versus that dirty motivation of fear. When you're coming from love, you will find your deeper purpose. Your purpose won't be about, I need to prove people wrong, I need to prove my doubters wrong, I need to get success, it's my revenge. That's all low consciousness stuff. You'll start to come from a place of contribution. I want to help, I want to make the world a better place. And yeah, you'll still get your own goals met along the way, but you will come from a place of love rather than this low source of motivation. I will say that if you're in a very dark place, fear can help you at the beginning, but you do not want to keep fear as your motivation. Eventually you need to swap that out. You need to heal and grow and start to use love as your motivation. And the final point here is you need to come to a place of self-acceptance. That's what this is all about. If you really accepted yourself, you wouldn't want to prove yourself. There'd be no need to prove yourself to anybody. The whole idea of proving yourself means you think you need to prove yourself. Only someone who is lacking, feels less than, would need to prove themselves. You accept yourself, everything's okay. I'm going to pursue my purpose. I'm going to do what I'm here to do because I have a deep respect for myself. I don't need it from other people, you see. I have it for myself. And that, like I said, is going to take you a lot further. I know a question that comes up a lot is people believe that if they're not motivated by fear of not being good enough, they won't want to take action. That's your ego lying to you. Okay, I know because I've had that experience. The truth is, love is the ultimate fuel. And when you love and respect yourself, you will want the best for yourself, like you would want the best for your child. Okay, it's that kind of love. You want the very best for your child, so you want the very, very best for yourself. And that's much more fulfilling. You could take two people. One person is fueled by not being good enough, wanting to prove themselves. The other person is fueled by self-respect and love for themselves. They both might achieve their goals, get to the place they wanted to be. One, though, will be unfulfilled and be looking to move to the next thing. The other person will actually feel a sense of fulfillment and peace and joy and be living their purpose. The difference is night and day. What a sad life it is to pursue things that never actually give you what you thought you would get. It's so sad. And like I said, I think this fear controls a lot of men, this fear of not being good enough. It's something I have to work on a lot. I see it coming up all the time, but with insight and awareness around it, I can begin to do the work, change it and stop being fueled by this need to prove myself. I don't need to prove myself to anybody, and neither do you. I hope this video helped some of you out. If it did, if you could please go ahead, give a like, share, subscribe. But until next time, God bless.